Alright boys, how we're getting on. Today we're going to be speaking about step by step how to move to Australia, my experience with it, the do's and don'ts, the pros and cons. So firstly, I'm just going to start off with my experience in Australia. I essentially grew up in Newcastle, UK, and when I was 18 years old, I was playing alright standard of rugby. I was working in the Merchant Navy, but I absolutely hated it. So a team in Western Australia, Perth, basically said, look, if you come and play for us for a season, we'll pay for your flights, your visa, and you basically just come over, we'll give you some work as well. And yeah, Bob's your uncle, essentially. So my initial plan was to go to Australia purely for like 4 months, just play the rugby season, come back to Newcastle. I had a girlfriend, Obviously, I just quit the Merchant Navy, actually, because I really did enjoy it. So my goal was to be a professional rugby player then. So I thought, right, well, I want to get experience in another country. So I've been given the opportunity to. So I flew over, and yeah, essentially that ended up being 6 years. Yeah, it's pretty mad. So when I flew over, I just fell in love with Australia straight away, especially Perth. Flew over there, started working as a labourer in construction, and then, 2 years of the rugby, was in the Western Australia state squad, but essentially I was just like, fuck. Yeah, I didn't see myself doing the rugby long term, so I just fell into the construction game with it, essentially. And then I just knew the ins and outs of how the visas work in Australia, getting your qualifications over there, how to get permanent residency. I basically turned into a little immigration agent because all I wanted to do was to live in Australia forever at the time. So now I'm currently living in Vietnam, Southeast Asia. I'm kind of just potting around, but I fell in love with Australia as soon as I got there. And I think a lot of people that are watching this that are moving to Australia, you will too. But what I'm going to go into next is essentially how to move over there. So people overcomplicate this so much, but all you're essentially going to be doing is get your 417 working holiday visa. I'm pretty sure the prices went up since last time. I'll stick it on somewhere here. And secondly, what you want to do is save up about £2,500. Sometimes there's like rumours, I never did this, like that you need 5,000 AUD to enter the country. They might ask for a bank statement or bank balance at the border. I've never heard of anybody having that problem. I never did. I actually went over there with £600, completely risked it, sold my little shitty car, went over there. So to be safe, save up £2,500 and get yourself over there. Thirdly is buy a one-way flight. And that's it. That is essentially it. I think for me, a one-way flight this is back in 2019, was £480 one way. But obviously the rugby club paid for that. But yeah, it's really simple. Save up £2,500. Get your 417 working holiday visa. Make sure it's granted before you go. Thirdly, get a one-way flight and don't look back. That's it. And now everything's on the immigration website. It's pretty simple. I'll put the link in the bio so you can go through it all. And essentially that is it to move to Australia. Now, another thing people are worried about at the moment, obviously, is rent. I found Australia being slightly cheaper than the UK overall, because for food, groceries, maybe similar price, rent was a bit higher, but you're earning a considerable amount more in Australia, especially as a tradesman. Because when I first moved over there, I got work through the rugby club as a bricklayer, labourer. Never done bricklaying in my life, but kind of learn on the job. That's the good thing about Australia. Even if you have a trade, or if you don't have a trade, right, you can go over there. People are very open to teaching you new things. No one's as fucking miserable on a job site like they are in the UK. So you can go over there and kind of just get yourself a tool belt, get yourself a tool bag, and if you're keen, you can get work over there. I know in Perth anyways. I never really stayed in the eastern states. Stayed in Perth, plenty of work there, especially in construction. But realistically, what I've found is so I'm going to go on the do's and don'ts, right? When you move over to Australia, a lot of the reasons why people move over there is because they want to get away from the old life. They want to get away from, fucking relationships, whatever, right? If you don't change your habits before you move over there, you're going to go there, you're going to meet other English people, Irish people, and you're going to mix in the exact same crowd you did back in the UK, because it's familiar, right? That's exactly what I've done. Even though I was playing decent standard of rugby or whatever, and I went over there for rugby, I went over there and I didn't know anyone. I knew like one lad from when I was 12 years old who was living there. Caught up with him. Don't get us wrong, I love me mates in Australia, but we just went on a massive bender for essentially 5 years. Every weekend, going on the drink, getting up to no good, and basically just being in this cycle of what I was doing in the UK was just working, live for the weekend, work and live for the weekend. Yes, it was in a hotter country. Yes, it was better, but it's like people think going to Australia is going to fix all your problems. Definitely isn't the case. You've got to literally make sure you fix yourself before you go over there, because no matter where you go in the world, you will attract people who are similar to you. So that's the first don't, all right? Well, that's the first do, really. Make sure you fucking change your bad habits before you go over there, and make sure you realise that not everything's going to be fixed when you move over there. You don't want to, for me, it got to a point where it was like, right, it's 6 years later, moved there when I was 18, 24 years old when I left. I was like, I have literally done the same thing for the last 6 years. I thought purely moving to Australia was like, that's going to be enough for me. You know, look at me, fucking post on my Instagram stories, this and that. No, the time goes quickly in Australia and your visas do run out quick. If you don't get your trade or whatever, or you get like a solid stability, like nailed down there, a lifestyle that you actually want to live, then time's going to go quick and you'll be back in the UK before you know it. And that's not me trying to scare you. It's just the whole thing isn't a holiday. If you're going to go there, yes, enjoy yourself, but make sure you're actually getting the life that you want, not just the same life you had back at home, but in a hotter country. Do you know what I mean? So that's the trap I kind of fell into, really. I looked at my Snapchat memories when I was like fucking 24 and I was like, I have literally lived the same life for 6 years. Like, where did the time go? Like, so just be really careful when you go over there. You know, you really, if I was to do it again, like, reinvent yourself going over there. Don't go over there and just fucking be the same DJ or the same person. Like, what's the point of even going then? Do you know what I mean? Like, you mingle with different crowds. And yeah, another thing I want to plug in as well is for you to stay in Australia long term, you're going to have some sort of skill or trade that the government needs. And you can look at the skilled visa list. It's on their government website, which I'm going to tag in the description. So for me personally, when I went over there, brickie labourer, did a bit of welding, had my welding tickets from the UK. And then I ended up getting my RPL, which is a recognition of prior learning. I had like 3 years experience as a carpenter, especially formwork or whatnot, like civil construction. And I managed to get fully qualified as a carpenter in Australia just purely off the experience that I had. So, and I was going to go down the residency route and I was ready to go for it. Like, I had everything set up. And essentially I was working FIFO, went there for the money, ended up being fucking more miserable, really. Working as a welder in FIFO and then also doing a bit of chippy work around the campsites as well. So went up there and then I realised I am on the top money I can make as a tradesman now. So I started looking into, well, and every time I was off my swing, I'd be going to Bali and like seeing how people live there. Like, you'll find a lot of FIFO workers do like a week on, week off, 2 weeks on, and then 1 week off in Bali or whatever, right? So for you people watching this, you'll soon realise you can get a better life out there, especially in the online space. Now, that's the path I went down in the end. That's how I'm able to just travel around Southeast Asia, live. I do something called remote sales. If this is your first video that you've seen, yeah, I'll give you a bit of a breakdown. Have a look at my YouTube channel and I'll basically break everything down in that. But you can move to Australia, think that everything's going to be sorted, go to FIFO, have this money. Then again, I wasn't even saving much when I was in FIFO. I was actually on the same hourly rate in the city than I was in FIFO, which was $65 an hour, which works out probably about 35 quid. Now, you can get that in the city and you go home every night and you're not isolated in the middle of the desert. Anyways, going off in a bit of a tangent with that. What I'm trying to say is you can go to Australia in the top money, but if it's not the lifestyle you want, you're still going to end up miserable in that same cycle you did back in the UK, just in a hotter country. And you might think, well, Jared, that's better. At least I'm in a hotter country. No, you're still away from friends and family and there is a lot of downsides to it as well. So I hope this video has been a bit more informative and that you've got a bit of a fucking breakdown everything, but I want you lads to know that have watched this, if it is something, a lot of you are going over there to travel and, you know, have a bit of a party or whatnot. Yes, it's all good initially, but it's not sustainable. And if you're in a job that you don't like now, you're certainly not going to like it in Australia in hotter weather, not in the long term anyways. Hence why I'm doing what I'm doing now. I'm not going to lie, my life is considerably better now. You know, I do miss the people in Australia, but I don't miss Australia itself. You know, being able to travel around, you know, make money from a laptop simply by just learning one high income skill has changed my life essentially. So I just thought I'd break everything down. And if you feel like you need a hand, and I know there's a lot of shit online which kind of ruins it for the genuine stuff, and trust me, I've spent a lot of money on the shit. If you do feel like you need a hand, you know, get in the online space, you know, working remotely, even just working from home, especially for tradesmen who think maybe I'm not tech savvy or whatnot, have a look at my YouTube, have a look at the testimonials. There is a ton of guys there that might not have the most brain cells, but they're managing to work remotely and travel around now that were previously tradesmen. So another thing is, I don't regret anything, but if I was to go back and do it again, I would get a remote job so I could actually travel Australia. You'll see that you kind of stay in one place once you got a job, and if you're moving around all the time, it's hard to find work. So getting remote work before you go to Australia, yeah, you'd be able to actually travel about then, because I kind of just did in Perth, Western Australia, travelled around Western Australia for FIFO, but I couldn't really move anywhere else because there was no work in the eastern states. There was no rent in the eastern states. But if I had this job that I had now, back then, obviously I can't redo my visa now, then I would literally just be getting a camper van, getting my laptop and just traveling around Australia, making money from wherever, like, but I'll just do that through Southeast Asia instead. But like I said, if you need a hand with that, reach out to us on Instagram or have a look through my YouTube. But yeah, Instagram, I'll get back to you. But I hope this has been informative, and yeah, I'll catch up with you again soon, boys.